If you've been having your McDonald's sausage McMuffin with an iced coffee from somewhere else, now's a great time to reconsider.
Revitalize and caramelize your morning with any size caramel, French vanilla, or classic iced coffee for just 99 cents. And pair it with a juicy, melty sausage McMuffin with egg for $2.79. Prices and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Welcome to another edition of the Awakening Women podcast. In this episode, we're talking about something I posted over on Instagram that took off quite a bit. And I love to come on the podcast and go a little bit deeper on some of those posts that obviously resonate with a whole lot of you. And the post is, a man in his healthy masculine seeks to repair relationship issues to maintain connection. Toxic and narcissistic men run away, gaslight, and pretend they have no idea what you're upset about, or they act like nothing happened and expect you to never bring it up again because it's in the past. Do you ever feel like if you never chased him down to try and work out your issues, and these being issues that, mind you, they created, things that they have done, that they'd never get resolved? The problem here is that even though you are the one chasing to fix the problems, they're not running toward you as well. And a relationship cannot be held together by one person doing all of the work. So if you are running behind trying to repair, trying to connect, trying to explain, trying to have another chat, trying to work out issues, which I understand where that comes from, believe me, I understand that very well. There comes a point where you have to realize that that is your own sickness, it's your own wounding, it's your own attachment traumas being played out in this relationship. And this is why women in these relationships can end up with trauma-induced health issues such as autoimmune disease, because the weight of all of this stress and frustration and chasing and exhaustion and your trauma wounds being triggered on a constant basis because you haven't healed them, right? This relationship has only just shone a light on where you need to heal, but you're not actually healing any of it. It's there, it's raw, it's ready for you to say like, hey, I'm here. Can we work on like what's going on for us now? Like, hello. And then your body starts going off. All the alarm bells, the check engine light, you have an oil leak, right? Your tire is flat, like all these things start going off, but what it actually is your body instead. Your body starts manifesting symptoms because you're not listening. You are barking up the wrong tree. You're going at it backwards, trying to force a grown man to grow, trying to force a grown man to want to fix the relationship. And you know from doing this, however long you've been doing it, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, it's not working, right? The therapy's not working. The relationship books and communication tactics, they're not working. You binging on narcissistic abuse content and maybe even sending it to him, it's not working, right? It's not making him see the light. It's not making him wake up. It's not making him want to do this work, which is what you think is going to make you the happiest, is if you had him come to you and mean it fully and want to dive into the work with you and want to do the healing work. You think that is the ticket to your happiness. There's a part of you that is trying to get that outcome to work out something from the past. And as you start to heal, you start to see this is not actually coming from this particular person. It's coming from deeper inside of yourself. And you're being called to look at that, to get in touch with your emotional landscape, to become more emotionally mastered, which means being attuned to what you're feeling. So if you are having physical health issues, this is your body telling you something is not right. And if you're in one of these relationships and you have the chaos and the ups and downs and the highs and lows, and they're controlling everything and they're manipulating everything, every conversation, every interaction, every single thing you try to do is met with some kind of diversion tactic, a deflection tactic, a defense mechanism, crazy making. You can't get anything resolved. And so your nervous system it never knows peace. Like, you don't even know what that feels like to just be in your home, in your own energy, in peace, only having to think about yourself, your needs, and not worrying about the next blow up or conflict. So even when you are not with them, your body is in anticipation, already tensing up and clenching. So you have been doing all of the work to hold this family together. You see it as your job to hold the family together, while, and this is if you are like the women I work with, you're balancing high-level careers, you're balancing businesses, successful businesses, and you go home and try to mother and be there for your kids, but you also have someone behind you, coming up behind you, creating more mess and chaos. It's like when you have little kids, it's that same thing where you feel like, I just picked up all these toys and now they're behind me pulling them all out again. This is happening with a grown adult, and not just physically, but emotionally. They're constantly creating a wake of chaos within the family system with their behavior, and you don't see it when you're in it. You cannot see it when you're in it. So the first things first is recognizing I am chasing him for what? What outcome do you think that is going to create? The second, what am I avoiding in chasing him? And where am I going behind him to clean up mess that he creates with his behavior, with his emotional immaturity? It could be physical, like actual mess in the house because they don't give a shit about who's going to clean up what they leave behind, right? Metaphorically, physically in the home, and emotionally, all of those things. They're not thinking about the well-being of those around them. They're thinking about what it is that they need and want, and that is the most important. What you want and need does not matter, and that is why when you try to raise issues about what is bothering you or upsetting you or what has hurt you in the relationship, it immediately blows up because it's, well, you do that too, or you've done this before too. You're not perfect either. I can't do anything right. And on it goes. They're not actually listening to your grievance. They're not actually even taking it in because they're so uncomfortable with looking at themselves. They cannot look at their faults. And so that's why they run away. That's why they use gaslighting. That's why they use stonewalling. That's why they throw it back at you. Well, what about you? You did this too. Well, I want that as well. I'm not happy either. You are making me miserable. And it's when you bring it up, that's the thing you notice. It's always when you are trying to have a conversation about them that they bring up all of a sudden how they're so unhappy with you and how you've done this, that, and the third. And this is, your problem as well. And that doesn't mean that you are perfect, because when we're talking about it in the context of a non-narcissistic, non-abusive, no abuse cycle happening here, a couple needs to learn that they both have a right to bring up their grievances, but not at the same time. So if someone is bringing something to you, it is not appropriate for you to throw 10 things that they also did without addressing the thing they brought to you in the first place. That's just good communication 101. Stick to the topic at hand, give the person the floor, and then you bring up your grievances at a totally different time when that has been resolved. And if you have a healthier relationship, you can say, well, let's address yours and then we'll address some of mine because I've been meaning to talk about these things with you too. But it can be tricky because you don't want it to be this tit for tat thing where it's like, well, I have things I want to bring up with you too. It's a tricky thing to navigate, to give the other person the floor and give that the airtime that it deserves. But when you're in narcissistic abuse cycles, that is not happening. And that's why things never feel resolved. So maybe this is a message you needed to hear today, is to stop chasing. And then when you stop chasing, when you stop seeking, when you stop trying to get your needs met from someone that cannot and has no interest in meeting them, there's this space, there's this emptiness that can be uncomfortable to sit with, because it's like, well, now what? And if you are ready for the now what, then make sure you get yourself into my End the Cycle 30-day program, because that is where you go when you don't know what the now what is. When you know, I can't keep doing this anymore. I know I have to stop this because it's making me sick. It's making me sad. It's making me crazy. It's stressing me out. I cannot keep doing this. And maybe this is the catalyst. Maybe this is the message you needed to hear today. Maybe this is the confirmation that you needed. And then you have to get to that level of conviction for yourself. And if you have not learned about my 5 levels of awakening, if you have not taken the Relationship Clarity Bootcamp, it's only $22. And it's 90 minutes where I go over all of this, the 5 levels of awakening. And I talk about how to get to conviction, which is the place knowing that you need to leave and you start taking those actions. Because until you get to conviction, you won't be able to take any of the actual actions. And so if you're not in that place where you know that you're leaving, you're in action, you're planning, you're on the way out, then you're not there yet. And that means that there is more awakening to do. There's more growth work to do. There's more things you need to know. There's some mindsets you might need to bust and shift. There might be some tactical things or some actual things you need to do to get yourself there, right? Some actual physical actions you need to take to get that clarity and get that conviction. And so if that's where you're at, then definitely head to get my bootcamp. It's a 90-minute course, and it's in the link in the show notes. So I hope this helped you, and maybe you took some nugget away from this. Maybe you are a chaser and you're chasing to try and get your needs met, to try and have a conversation, to try and close the loop, to try and get them to see where they've gone wrong, to try and get them to admit that they're wrong, to admit what they're doing, to admit that they have a problem, and on and on. So get clear, what is the goal? If you know, after spending at least several years going around in these crazy making cycles that go nowhere, you know it doesn't work. And yes, every woman has a certain threshold, because some of us can do this for decades before we have our final awakening of like, I'm done with this. And it can be over the smallest thing when you get to that level. And many women have said to me, how am I going to know? Like, is there going to be some big thing that rains down on me? Is there going to be like a thunderbolt that clocks me in the head, or some just big pivotal awakening moment where I know I'm done? Just like, what else needs to happen? Because all this shit has already happened and I'm still here, not fully convinced that leaving is the right thing. So how am I going to know? That's a really frustrating place to be. When you know that this isn't good, but you still don't have that clarity and conviction to move forward. So it kind of feels frustrating and like you're in this lockhold where you don't want to keep doing what you've been doing. You're done with that, but you're not really sure how to move forward. So that's what I help women do. That's what I help women do in the cycle program. And that's where you can get started if you're ready to take your power back. So that's what I have for you in this episode. And if you love this show and you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, please leave a rating and review if this show has helped you at all. I love reading reviews and seeing the feedback on the show. It's a one-way conversation, so it is nice to hear how this show is benefiting you. Bye for now.